presidents to represent me. I'm out for presidents to represent me. I'm out for presidents to represent me.
Good afternoon and welcome to Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio with your host, Pamela Capallet, a certified financial planner here to help take the bite out of your budget, brunchandbudget.com. I'm your sound provider, Dialect, and here's your host, Pamela Capallet.
Thank you, Dialect. Happy Sunday, everybody. I hope y'all are staying warm. You didn't get too caught up in that snowstorm yesterday, was it? Was
nice
that when
rhyme.
the snow was? Thanks. Hanging out with you too much. All right, so we got a great show. We actually have, dun dun dun, an accountant in the room today.
It's going to be good.
He sounds really pumped, too. Woo! No, he's actually really awesome. Rus Garofalo of Brass Taxes, and total props for that name, for
Thank
the
you.
record.
Thank you.
Such a good pun. I love it. So he's going to be here answering tons of tax questions. Join us in the chat room at bonfireradio.com if you have any for him in terms of when to file, how to file, should you get an accountant this year, what the hell is a 1099, you know, any of that stuff.
All of my not quite 9 to 5 people should be listening in and asking questions, especially those of you hybrid people who have the sometimes 8 to 11 plus other odd things and want to see how all that works out.
Yeah, totally. It's true. So, but before we get started, I just have a question for you guys. I want you all literally to raise your hands if this sounds familiar. I just eat out too much. I know it, but cooking takes too much time. My barista starts making my drink as soon as I walk in. I don't even remember buying this, but I guess I really wanted it at the time. Wait, how much was that bar tab last night? Oh, I have no idea how to get out from under my credit card bills. If you raised your hand or nodded your head or cringed a little or your heart hurt a little when you heard those things, I am actually hosting a Saving is Power Money Detox Challenge starting on February 15th. If you'd like to join, it's going to be pretty hardcore, y'all, but maybe you'll turn these cringy feelings around. Go to brunchandbudget.com and click on Saving is Power to join the challenge.
Wait, people have their own barista?
People do. I have walked in with people who are like,
My
this is my
barista.
Starbucks, and they just start writing my name as soon as I walk in. They start writing my name on a cup, and they know to make me my caramel macchiato.
I just talked to a girl who said she doesn't say anything in the morning. She walks in, they start making it. She nods, pays, out.
Oh my God.
No conversation. I was like, I just asked her. I was like, is there anywhere where you have the usual? She's like, I don't say a word. I don't say a word.
Is she Mrs. Starbuck? Is she the lady who posed for the is she the
has
mermaid?
she does have long green hair. That's where the.
All right. Okay.
See,
Well,
I knew it.
that's legitimate then. She doesn't need this challenge. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Russ. We're very excited to have you. We have tons of questions. But first, I just wanted to hear a little bit about how you got into accounting and taxes in general. What's your background?
Yeah, it was totally random. This was an absolutely unexpected turn of life events. Being an accountant was my nightmare job. I thought that's what happened.
This is your nightmare right now.
Yeah, I thought you became an accountant if like you grew up and didn't make choices. Like if you just kept growing up and you're like, I don't know, I don't want to have no money. But
Wow, that's not a bad worst case scenario.
yeah, like you end up in a terrible white collar job.
Right.
That's what I imagined.
Yeah,
of like
and just be totally
you
bored.
started from a decent background, got to go to college, and didn't make choices. And but that's not how it happened. And I love it. So I was doing stand up in Arizona. I moved to New York and was doing stand up and improv comedy
Are
here.
you a funny accountant? Is that what you
I'm
just told
totally
us?
funny.
Oh my God.
I have the
love it.
funniest tax preparation place in the country right now. My new website is so much funnier than any of the other tax websites.
That is actually true. If you go to brasstaxes.com, I'm looking at it right now. You're going to laugh.
It's funniher than H&R Block.
That's my friend David Levin with 3 arms, explaining how the tax process works.
Yes.
And then I started making my day job. My money job was working as a video editor. And
Whoa. Stand-up comedian, video editor. I can't wait to see where this
and
is
so
going.
yeah, like the progress of a lot of people in New York is you get into improv. You can't sell improv because it's not a standardized, codified, sellable thing. So you get into sketch.
Right.
You get into writing sketches.
Yeah.
And then when you unless you want to do them in a theater and hope somebody's there, you got to film them. So like people learn to do like I came about in like the Final Cut era of like you can do it all yourself. It's accessible now. So I was working at Good Magazine in the video editing department and interning at The Onion when the 2008 crash happened. And at first they were like, everything's fine, nothing's going to happen, it's all good. And then 2 months later they're like, we're closing up the New York office and moving to LA.
Oh my God.
And I could just tell from having freelance for like the last 5 years solid that something was different. Like I was working almost exclusively in internet video. There wasn't an income stream from it for businesses, and there just weren't jobs out there. So I just realized I needed a day job. I started asking around. A friend of a friend's parents was a tax preparer who worked out of his house. And so I just started working for him as like an admin guy. And then he realized I had a brain for it. I was kind of liking it. Part of the job was to like keep him off the telephone. So I would like take some information I heard previously and kind of like improvise the answer I thought it was, and then check in with
skills.
him.
Nice.
And then I'd be like, was that right? And he'd be like, yeah. But answer this as well. And he was like, it seems like you have a good brain for this. If you want to, go take these classes and you can start doing taxes for me. And that's kind of how that got started. And, in general, I just realized I was doing my own taxes badly as a freelancer. And
oh, wow. Okay. Were you doing them yourself when you were freelancing?
yeah, because like I feel like we're from like a DIY generation where like you can watch YouTube and do anything. Like, it was.
Did you learn how to do your taxes on YouTube when you were freelancing?
No, I don't know how I did. I guess
I was like, wow, that's impressive.
I guess it was. Yeah, I mean, I think I probably just did TurboTax and like you Google stuff, and then at some point you stop Google and stuff and just do it. And then working for that guy, I just realized like I should have been writing and performing, and I wasn't writing it off because I wasn't making that much money yet. I was making money as a video editor,
right.
But I was spending thousands of dollars professionally pursuing being a writer and a performer. But I just didn't. I don't know. I used my own brain. It didn't really occur to me that was a tax issue. And then, so finding out that it actually matters how you're pursuing an activity as to whether it's a business and you can write it off, is the determination of whether you can have expenses for that. Like I had a business. I just wasn't profitable yet, but I had a business.
Okay.
And just finding that out made me really mad. Like all those years, like, I'm living in New York City and making like low $20,000 and scraping for it. Like stressed all the time. Like there's no drinks at dinner. There's never an appetizer.
Yeah.
Like I'm judiciously ordering when I go out with friends, and when I get invites, I have to think about where we're going and who I'm going with and making sure we're not splitting the bill.
That sounds like so many people. And
that intense level of stress to find out I had been losing several $1,000s a year because I didn't have enough money to pay somebody else to tell me these things. Because like I thought people who got tax help were either rich, scared of numbers, or lazy, and I wasn't any of those. And
word, yeah. Doc posts a lot. He says I'm in that boat right now. Doc posts a lot in the chat room, and he's saying I sure don't have no money to tell me these things. Oh. But it sounds like, do you think that if you could go back in time, you would have seen an accountant? Because if you lost thousands of dollars as a freelancer, like how much, for instance, how much are your fees right now on average?
Most of my clients pay $200. And I think that sounds, it depends on the person. Some, like, TurboTax for most of my clients is about, last year it was $111. But you don't know that in TurboTax until you get 3 hours into TurboTax.
Right.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, you have 1099 untaxed income? Oh, then you need this package. And at that time, you're time committed. You either have to walk away from that several hours work and just, take a loss of that effort.
Right.
Or, they purposely keep that information away from you.
Right.
And so I priced myself against TurboTax and what I would feel comfortable paying myself. And a good tax preparer, if they're not overpriced, like once you're getting into 1099 income, untaxed income, you have expenses, you're doing your own stuff on spec, whether you're making a record or you're making your own videos, trying to sell stuff, like a good tax preparer should save more than they cost. And
Did you all hear that? Somebody tweet that. A good tax preparer should save more than they cost.
the other side of that is, depending on how aggressive you are, they may stop you from doing something you'll regret later. It's not a tax preparer's job is not to get you back as much money as possible.
Right.
I'm the liaison between present you and future you. And present you doesn't want to pay any money, and future you doesn't want to deal with the consequences of being super shady right now.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
And
you know
Totally.
you can go to those cheap places and they will fight tooth and claw and
We'll
get
do whatever
every
you
sort
want.
of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just tell them I want X amount of dollars. Okay, we'll find that.
I've seen terrible things on tax returns, and it's just and there's also the problem of your tax preparer may just want to make you happy too much, and they know if they put down that you donated $3,500, your return's going to skyrocket. You're going to be like, oh my gosh, it's so wonderful, and we don't ask why, but in the end, you sign that tax return and say, I agree to all these numbers, these are all right, and you're going to deal with the repercussions of it. And it's you that's liable, it's not the tax preparer. So they may make you happy in the moment, but one, it's lying,
yeah.
and like two, depending on what you're doing, it could be a felony, but it's all on you. Like, you should still read that thing and ask for an explanation if you don't understand.
Wow. So don't just sign the bottom of the thing when you see any accountant.
Yeah.
In general, if you do take that step, you should make sure that the accountant explains the actual tax return to you and where these numbers came from.
Yeah, and none of it's that hard. I think a big... It's always a big advantage to somebody if they can convince you can't... It's not possible for you to understand something.
Yeah, because those forms, honestly, are very confusing to look through.
Yeah, the forms are
The
confusing,
numbers are
but
really
the concepts
small.
aren't.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And I'm saying
Oh, that's a good distinction.
that a lot of the tax stuff is confusing because it's like it's bad verbiage, it's bad graphic design.
Yeah.
But conceptually, it's like add up all your money. How much money did you make?
Yeah.
Anything
Right,
that's
that's
a
true.
deduction or expense, you subtract it. That's whatever's left over. That's what you're taxed on. You're taxed at this rate. That's the tax. Like there's nothing beyond that. Like
Right.
but it's convenient. Anytime you're in a discussion where money's changing hands and one person is just trying to be like, oh, it's real complicated. It's not worth
Right.
trying to understand.
Yeah, you
Like-
won't get it. It's fine.
Yeah, and there's none of that is necessary. Like we're not doing really complicated, like funding $1 million movies with back end points, and like there's not
Right.
once you're involved in a deal, you should have help to make it comprehensible, and that person should be a good enough communicator to make you comprehend it. And if they can't, you should go somewhere else.
There you go.
Word. I love that. So your accountant should want to talk to you. I feel like that's like totally like a reasonable request, right?
Yeah.
Your accountant should want to talk to you and explain stuff to you. So what is the demographic of most of your clients? Who do you see? Do you see other freelancers? Do you see W-2 people? What kinds of things do they do?
I see most of my clients are freelancers, and when I say freelancer, I mean they're making untaxed money, not just they have no job stability. Where there's a lot of W-2 people who might have a job for 2 weeks and then that's over.
Right, gotcha.
So they're freelancing, but technically they're treated as employees. Most of my clients make untaxed money and have some W-2 work. They're all over the map as far as income. I have clients. There's some people who make. A guy had over a W-2 with over $2 million on it.
Whoa.
And you look at it and you're like, something's weird. Oh, there's an extra number. There's an extra number where
There's
you
an
don't
extra
expect a
zero
number. And that's weird on a W-2. Most people who make that kind of money
Yeah.
are not making it as an employee.
Right.
But I have clients who are making $10,000, $5,000, $15,000.
okay.
Like,
Yeah.
and a big part of the social issue of the company is that those people have to be treated the same. That was one of the things that made me angry when I realized I wasn't doing my taxes well, was that the reason I wasn't having my taxes done well was because I didn't have the money to get it done. I didn't know I didn't know that it could even possibly be worth it, and I didn't know who to go to to get my taxes done at a decent price and get a high level of service that I actually thought was worth it. But it basically came down to like I didn't have the money to pay someone to give me good information.
Wow. So you are that person now for people.
Yeah, I want to be that person.
Yeah.
And
so you
everybody
treat the $2 million client exactly the same as the $10,000 client.
Yeah, I mean it's just
Word.
it's the same foundation of like what did you do? What are your reasonable expenses? Like take what you're entitled to. Don't be greedy. Like the money's only one part of it. The anxiety is a much larger aspect that we live with.
Oh
and
my God, so true.
So that's why I want people to understand. It's like I want to let them know like you should be on top of this stuff. You need to take care of these aspects. But you don't have to worry about this stuff. Once you get this and this done, you can stop worrying.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking care of what you need to take care of. But people don't know when to stop worrying.
Yep.
You feel like if you don't understand why bonds go up when stocks go down, then you're not on top of your finances. And for most people, that's just not the case. Like, you don't need to know everything about how money works in order to be on top of your finances. But we never know when it's okay to stop worrying.
Right.
So I want to give them that information. And just like, it's some basic finance education. It's helping them stay organized and know what to worry about and what not to worry about. So they can relax.
Awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I love that. I feel like that not enough people try and put you at ease, especially accountants, I feel, no offense to accountants out there, but
money people in general, I feel like.
There's this whole thing of like, I know all this jargon and I have all this knowledge that you don't, and I'm not going to bother to even tell you about it or explain it to you. Oh, you don't know this? Let's not even talk about it. You know?
And I think that's part of what I don't like, and that it's like anytime someone uses a word that they understand really well and you don't quite understand, they're at a bargaining advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even if it's just...
And they treat it that way.
Yeah. And it's... I hate that. And I purposely avoid terms that like numb our brains a little bit. Like I'll avoid saying the standard deduction when I'm explaining something because we've heard that term too much.
Yeah.
And we kind of get it, sort of, and then we forget what it is because we only deal with this stuff once a year.
Yeah.
So...
And it still means nothing.
Yeah,
and
it's still like a vague...
Yeah.
You're like, I've heard that phrase, but it's... It has no specific meaning. And so if it gets thrown in casually to a sentence, like your brain stops right there as it tries to work out that term. And so I just avoid all those terms. Like none of it's that complicated. It's just bad verbiage and bad graphic design.
Yeah.
That's
And I think,
design.
the bad verbiage and the bad graphic design are part of how you set up something to be confusing. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of people in our type of thing where we're artists, we got all this money all over the place, we end up losing all this money because we don't want to go and talk to a person because we've been told that it's confusing. We get in there, even if we're having a good time, when that one confusing moment comes up and it's not addressed and not dealt with, you're left back in that place of, oh, I don't know what I'm doing and I don't have enough money to pay someone quality to take care of the thing.
And you don't know if you're paying enough to bring up this point.
Right.
You can kind of... Most tax places are incentivized like to get you done because there's somebody like, I'm going to increase my hourly rate if I finish you up.
Yeah, they're trying to churn, basically.
Yeah, and it is. It's a race. It's a very short season. It's a quarter of the year. And it's really like, it starts maybe in February. Like people start coming. And then it's over April 15th. So as many people as you can crank out, like, that's a great part of your income. Like, look at H&R Block. Those stores are empty 9 months of the year.
Yeah.
You're paying that rent.
Yeah, straight up.
When you go there, like, you're paying for all that. It's amazing the amount of real estate they have sitting empty for most of the year.
Ooh.
It's mind-blowing.
Whoa.
And it works, though. I mean, but
they put out the flags, and you're like, okay, it's time.
Well, even more than I think the TV and print ads for H&R Block, knowing that there is one in my neighborhood, I remember being like, oh, I'm gonna keep you in mind for later. Or even if I didn't keep it in mind, tax season comes, and everyone feels unprepared when tax season comes.
Yeah, because you don't get time off.
Right, exactly. So you're like, oh, it's here. Oh, it's almost April. There's an H&R Block near me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that. No, it's like total advertising all year round for just keeping an empty building. That's so crazy.
And it's a path of least resistance. Like people are anxious. Like you go to that first place that can relieve it.
Yeah.
And I mean the H&R Block Turbo, amazing marketing.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
I
And-
just don't think it's a good service for the kind of clients who come to me.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds like everyone on every level is trying to sell that feeling of relief that you were talking about. That feeling of like, now I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's done. It's over.
Yeah, and H&R Block now and is also picking up, and TurboTax pick up the like, if you don't use us, you're leaving money on the table. You're just throwing money away. And that's a difficult one with taxes because you never know if it could have been better.
Now that's
Yeah.
deep.
Yeah.
You never know if it could have been better.
Because you don't have a second result. Like, you do your own, like, a lot of
Right.
people, like, you know, whenever it comes up, like, in a social setting, what I do for a living, it, like, the people who do their taxes on their own sometimes, like, defend that they do it on their own to me as though I, like,
Yeah.
as I don't have a problem with it. But they're just like, like, they'll just be like, well, I do my taxes myself. I got like $2,800 back last year. As though the result indicates success or failure. Like, you may have been entitled to $6,000. You may have been you may have, like, actually should have owed $600. Like,
Right.
I don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah, but there's nothing to compare it to either. And I feel like, too, that there's this whole thing about, like, getting money back and getting refunds. It's like, a refund means that someone owed you money and they gave it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's
nothing
just-
to do with, like, oh, I won $2,800. It's like, nah,
Yeah.
you should have had
That's
that
what
money
it-
all year.
Well, that's what it feels like. Is like
Yeah.
it's like you want it. I mean, it's similar to, and it would sound absurd if I said, well, you know, I meet somebody to a lawyer and I'm like, hey, you know, I do my own lawyer and I ain't been to jail in 10 years.
Yeah, and a large part of it is of the tax talk going on is like, just because you don't get called out for doing something wrong doesn't mean it was right.
Yeah.
Like,
Hear that, everybody?
and it doesn't mean it was right in your favor or not in your favor. There's a lot of, like, I was doing my taxes fine myself before I started working for this tax guy.
Right.
I just wasn't getting as much money as I should have been, or I could have been.
Yeah.
But I didn't know, so I was doing my taxes fine, and I was saving money.
Yeah, and you were like, oh, this is great.
I'm doing it cheaper than I could have paid somebody to do it because I was using, you know, on whatever online thing I decided was the best deal at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Word. All right. I think we got to go to a song, and then we're going to dive into. We have a couple questions in the chat room, a couple questions from some other listeners previously. Woo! That was a lot of knowledge that you just dropped. And that was really helpful, too, in terms of, like, knowing what you should expect from someone who you're paying for a service, honestly. Not just accountants, but anyone who you're paying for a service.
Yeah, the
Really,
bar
truly.
needs to go up
Yeah.
much higher.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
Here we are. We're not done with Rust yet. We're going to come back with this, and we're going to keep
lots
on
more.
raising the bar. I figured it would be nice to start off with some confusing rap, so I got my homeboy Lifelong and my homie Stealth Index, a.k.a. Peoples, a.k.a. many other things of the Stronghold crew, with their song Morse Code, and it's too hard to figure out, so, you know, it's going to be like that. Check y'all in a minute on Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio.
It's hard to figure us out. We too complex to be out. Us figure too hard. It's to figure us out. Too complex is hard.
Two, one. If you swallowed hollow shells, would you still itch bullets? Cause most y'all be shook sitting ducks when LIFE long and the self index reveal what's concealed. Y'all clowns still wanna bring it, but get down when we throw pills. Ouch, can you feel it? I'm in this Philly to pay the rent, get the meal tickets. Flow wild with thorns that grow over your ordinary gates and wooden picket fences. Even if you try to lock us or stop us, our stronghold, we equipped with bloodhounds and men on top horses blowing trumpets. And you think you get out boxes? Just play the game to lose, like game over, cause the arcade was closing and the owner pulled the plug out the socket. Now you're vexed, but no crying over spare change. Just keep it moving like your stop pass, cause you messed up and took an express train. Now who's to blame? You wasting time with your chick and now she's calling out my name. That's why you got a smart mouth from tasting too much of my brain.
It's hard to figure us out. We too complex to be out. Us figure too hard. It's to figure us out. Too complex is hard.
Two, one.
It's hard to figure us out. We too complex to be out. Us figure too hard. It's to figure us out. Too complex is hard.
One, two, one, two.
You heard it. can't avert it, so observe it. Got you stuck on the same level like the word level inverted. Face crash for I pop spies like Brutus bugging. Leave your eyes in the cassette tops for easy overdub. Your boys intervene like folic acid to prevent brain damage. Send your follicles, stronghold, brick to the cuticles. Your girl like from the pubics. Now she spit right like when I incited battle riots and wars on alien hip hop. Lick shot, blood on smart from shell shot. Knock heads via combination lock in the sock. Prelude, thinking long range. Enemy inside at long range. Sound strange, cold Morse. Did it only once, no remorse for what I did. Rocket toxic, non-Protestant, affluent Catholic by accident. Just for the days off. Brains off, but still in operation. Minus the red nose, pull bones, baggy skin sagging, jogging by the anklet. Never fear getting my ass kicked. Revenge has been my main bitch. Immaculate conception, birth to my new baby Malice. It's hard to figure us out. We too complex that we out. Us figure too hard. It's to figure us out. Too complex. It's hard. It's hard to figure us out. We too complex that we out. Us figure too hard. It's to figure us out. Too complex. It's hard. Forceful entry. My full force is deadly. More juice in the foursome. Minus 3 plus sight equals I won.
We stunned you shake cause we shock and latecomers come up short against stronghold employees who be penalized in the docket.
The ship in your ass portal with immortal images of the art. All MCs shout 1-2 before they start.
Begin, let this play with no rewind cause a turnaround will turn spectators into grams of salt for trying to look behind.
On the floor, permanent recline. Grain of pepper, season in the ground. You get the saute sound. We 320 pounds.
Even heavier soaking wet. Check our weight right after we finish rocking the set.
You're up in the record live. Stronghold, live and direct in your set. No bars hold, the strong will survive. So
only retreat, no retaliate, just surrender. The war's over when you surrounded and your position is up in the center.
It's hard to figure us out. We're too complex that we out. Us figure too hard. It's to figure us out. Too complex, it's hard. What, 2, 1, 2. It's hard to figure us out. It's too complex that we out. Us figure too hard. It's to figure us out. Too complex, it's hard. 2, 1.
Welcome back to Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio. We're here with Pamela Capallet and our special guest today, Rus Garofalo of Brass Taxes. Trying to avoid the pun of getting down to brass tacks, but I mean, that's what we're doing right now, so listen on up.
I think that's why the name is so good. Just so many puns.
Mostly just the one.
Okay, just the one, but you know.
A lot of people don't know if it's brass tacks or brass taxes. Like somebody has the Twitter handle and he thinks it's brass tacks, but he.
No, I get that. Yeah.
That's funny.
Anyway.
Cool. Thank you again so much for being here and just for giving us an idea of this is what you should expect from an accountant. This is, if you go and see one, they need to treat you like a person, which I feel like is a pretty reasonable baseline request for anyone. But accountants, you know, I know.
I mean, when's the last time you've been to a store to buy a thing and they treated you like a person?
I'm not saying it's what happens. I'm saying that that's the least you should be able to ask of somebody. Well, especially someone who's like looking at your money. It's just such a nerve-wracking thing, and you already don't want to think about it, and you already don't want to see an accountant. So, yeah, thanks for being like a normal person.
Yeah.
As well as an accountant. That really helps.
For real.
that really helps a lot. We do have a listener question. Dr. Postalot asked us. Let's see. It was a good question. So when you so I'm going to read it exactly as he writes it because I love it. So when you're on the 1099 life, is it a good rule of thumb to pay your taxes every 3 months instead of waiting till the end of the year?
Yes. In general, all tax answers, there's a joke that the answer is always, it depends. With estimated taxes, that's your quarterly tax payment. You're basically taking a guesstimate of what you're going to owe at the end of the year and paying it quarterly. And you owe taxes based on your profit, not based on how much money you get. So if you got checks for $10,000 in 3 months of a year, you don't owe tax on $10,000. You owe tax on whatever is left after you subtract your expenses. And that's where it gets difficult to gauge what you should be paying.
Yeah.
the best you can really do is you're just trying to stay in the ballpark with estimated taxes. You're not going to be right on. You're still going to end up owing money or getting money back at the end of the year. And that's all that happens if you overpay. You just get your own money back, just like you do if you have a W-2 job and they take too much taxes out. So the advantage is the more 1099 untaxed money you make, the more you're going to owe at the end of the year. If you're living in New York City on $30,000, you're going to owe about $8,000 at the end of the year.
Ooh.
That's a really large amount of money. $30,000, not a lot of money to make in a year. Living in New York City, $8,000, a lot of money to have to pay all at once.
Yeah,
I remember when that hit me the first time.
It's
I started
mind-blowing.
doing it. It's well, and then you're like, how am I supposed to pay this? And how was I supposed to live?
Yeah.
For the past year and
Yeah.
save up the money that you want for this. It's
Yeah.
a
Well,
pretty
and how
hard
was
blow.
I doing it as a W-2 employee?
And the way you were doing it as a W-2 employee is because they took it before you ever saw it.
Right, so you got used to that.
They were taking $100, a couple $100 every 2 weeks. So you never saw it coming. And all of a sudden you add all that up. You're paying for your year. You're paying for a year of anything. If someone just said, "Oh, pay your beer tab," it's March. You have to pay 2014's beer tab. It's going to be a number that is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because you just weren't paying $6-7 at a time.
Word, yeah.
And so the advantage of paying estimated taxes is you're just breaking that gut-wrenching, nauseating check writing experience into four lesser gut-wrenching, nauseating check writing
I
experiences.
also wanted to put out that because this is something I found out as a freelancer when I first got that back. I realized, because you say, how was I doing as a W-2 person?
Yeah.
I realized that I was undercharging people and I was allowing people to pay me less money because it seemed like similar money
Right.
to what I was making with the W-2.
Right. When you go freelance, you have to raise your prices by, I would say, around 30 to 40%.
Yeah,
That
30%
makes
has
sense.
generally been
To
the
cover
thing
the
I've
tax,
heard.
yeah.
To cover the taxes, you're losing benefits. You don't have any unemployment. If you get let go, you have to take care of all that stuff. You have more responsibility as a 1099 person, as an untaxed
Yeah.
person.
And don't
Yeah.
sweat it when people make a funny face, because I started doing that and people were like, what? And you're like, yeah, no, 30% more because I have to give it to the government. So
Yeah.
we can't play around like
Yeah.
that.
It's not even going to be mine, yeah.
Say the price you want and then just stay quiet.
Just stare them down.
Just
until
wait.
They say
They'll
yes.
talk.
That's good advice.
And an
love it.
additional aspect that is a lot of the difficult part that it's good to talk through with somebody is paying estimated taxes quarterly. Even if you're just taking a guesstimate, you don't really know how accurate it is, but you relax when you pay that. If you think you're going to owe $8,000 or you owed $8,000 last year, paying that $2,000 check, it's going to be nauseating. And as soon as you put it in the mail, you calm down because you know whatever's coming at the end of the year, you're $2,000 into it already. You already have $2,000 taken care of.
Okay, so it's like a good peace of mind thing, too, to be doing estimated tax payments.
You're taking care of the future you who's going to have to live through tax time in 9 months, in 6 months, in 3 months, in a month. And I think a lot of people use the rationale of, well, I don't know, I might need that money in 3 months. If I give away that $2,000, like what if I don't get a job in the next 3 months? And we live with that lack of certainty working freelance. And it's true. It's a reasonable thought. But I think most of the time it's based on the fact that we don't want to write that check. It's a reasonable
Right.
thought, but
Yeah.
that's not the impetus. The impetus is I don't want to write that check. So I came up with an absolutely reasonable
Excuse,
reason
basically.
for not writing it. And it is
Right.
reasonable, and no one can deny that you're being responsible. But mostly I think it's that we don't want to write that check. If you write that check, in general, we'll figure out how to live going forward.
Right.
Right.
You've been doing it before, and you were doing it as a W-2 employee before, too. Like you were
there
one.
right now.
I know. That's the thing, is
And
it's that,
isn't
like,
that how-
separation of the money.
Well, and isn't that how, folks with a lot of money, that's how they keep a lot of money, by keeping a lot of money
Yeah,
for as long
exactly.
as humanly possible. So that's something that's also taught to you. Like, you're
Yeah.
trying to make your money and make a lot of money. Well, you want to take the money you got, and even though you owe it to other people, you want to push it here, invest, and do all those other things
Yeah.
before you have to finally give it up.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's absolutely something that is in my head of like put off expenses as long as you can. Don't pay if you're not going to have to pay extra. One aspect we haven't discussed is that you are paying interest on that money for not paying your estimated taxes. but it's not quite high enough to motivate anybody. I think more importantly is how do you feel day to day? And although, you want to put off paying expenses and keep your money, in general, that's people who have their money invested. It's making more money than it's costing them. And overall, I would say there's a lot of ways you can make money that take a lot of attention. And that's not what most of my clients want to be doing. They want to be focused on making awesome paintings. They want to be focused on making awesome music.
Right.
They don't want to be thinking about like, oh, well, I'm getting charged 8.5% for interest for my estimated taxes, but I'm making 13 right now in my mutual fund, so I'll keep riding out that, and then I'll move it. I just have to sell at the right time. And you end up playing these. You might end up with more money, but it's taking your time, which is more precious and valuable.
Yeah, that sounds like a job right there.
No, totally. And your brain space, you don't have time for the other stuff. And it sounds like it is just about prioritizing like what's important too.
Yeah. I mean,
that's the biggest thing.
In the end, $1,000 is sounds like a lot of money, but if someone says it's going to take another 40 hours of worry, management, and thinking, like maybe $1,000 is not worth 40 hours of your time over the course of a year. And
yeah, I feel that.
But in the moment, it's good to talk that through with someone who can be objective, and that's all a tax preparer is. It's not their money. That's why I'm not nervous.
Right.
Yeah, no, totally. And you need that too. Well, and also you have expertise.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, there's a knowledge base that there's just no need for most people to know.
Yeah,
it.
Exactly. You do
It's
this
like,
once a year, and you go to somebody who knows what they're doing, and that's it. Period. You know?
I think it's like playing a video game. Like if I hand my mom the Nintendo controller, she's gonna suck.
Yeah.
Like she plays it once a year, and I'm practicing all the time. Like I've done more tax returns than anyone will ever do in their entire lifetime. Like I do that. I do that in half a month. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally.
And there's just no need for people to know it. It's just not worth your time, effort, Googling skills.
Right.
Because you don't know what's worth your time. So at a certain point, you stop Googling and just go whatever.
With the last thing.
Well, and you don't know
found.
what advice is going to mess you up, and
Yeah, because nobody talks about it either. All the stuff's very private.
Yeah.
Like best friends, boyfriends, and girlfriends don't discuss money openly very often. And then we just, I don't know, some guy who does vaguely what you do at a bar said this.
Yep.
And then that's what we go with.
Yeah.
That's
really?
That's the best thought, but it's really the only thought. It's that or keep Googling and reading IRS verbiage. It's a terrible choice regarding large sums of money.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I'm in financial planning and I have an accountant. I'm not doing them myself. This is also even someone who's in finances. And being in finances and being an accountant are two completely different things, and they're completely different knowledge bases too. So like that's, I don't do tax returns, So.
Yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't have to do with, I thought it was rich people, lazy people, scared of math. And it's not. It's just it's a video game. I play it a lot. You don't. I'm better at it. It's worth your time. You think this video
game exists? The IRS tax preparer video game.
Can I make that fun?
Can you
make that fun?
You got all these.
I was going to say, I think I just fell asleep. Can I make that fun? I like how you're thinking about it. Like, could that be fun?
It could be fun. Look, no, you're a funny guy. You all your clients are artistical people. Somebody's got to be able to put together a thing.
Yeah, there's got to be something that. Yeah, I mean, it's all just, You
could just cheat. It could be like a thing where you have to finish preparing the tax before you get to do the actual fun part of the game.
It's just like a tease where, something fun is happening, and then it stops you to be like, hey, add up all your 1099s.
Yeah.
Hero, the villain has kidnapped the prince and or princess, but to get to them, you've got to know your deductions.
It's funny. I think TurboTax does, create the image of walking down a road, answering questions.
Right.
Yeah. They try and make it some sort of you're really just filling out forms with a graphic.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I remember there was what was that insurance company that had I remember their commercials had some sort of action cartoon thing.
What, like Geico or something?
No.
I don't know.
Like a Esurance, yeah. They had some action. It looked like a 90s MTV cartoon, type of thing, and they were trying to make it exciting.
All right, so if insurance can do it, accounting probably can too.
It's
like Mortal Kombat, maybe. I'm trying to think of what video games.
The excitement is internal. The tumultuous
tagline.
The tumultuous environment is inside you. It's a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly.
That's enough emotion. We're good on emotion.
I'm going to use that for everything. I'm just stealing it. The excitement is internal.
Yeah.
So nothing happened in this film. The excitement is internal.
Yeah. You didn't feel it? Just keep internalizing it. I love it.
And by
Oh my
by
God.
internal, I mean it's in me. You don't have to know it's not for you. I'm excited.
Oh my God. All right. More listener questions. Can I claim money I spend on lunch on my lunch breaks?
No. That is a pretty clear no.
Right.
And the reason is because there has to be, whenever there's a gray area, that there's personal stuff and there's business stuff. So you're eating a meal while you're at work, but you have to eat because you're a human.
Okay.
There's not so with meals in particular is the one receipt I have people write on the receipt and write, what's the profit motive? What did you didn't buy food with this meal. I was out with my graphic designer and I didn't have to pay him his hourly because we're hanging out at lunch. So I didn't buy, I didn't buy ham and cheese sandwich. I bought graphic design advice for free.
Word. Okay, that's a really good way to think of it.
Yeah, that's
Because
really
you can
helpful.
write off business lunches. That's what that sounds like.
But we all go.
Correct.
Everybody wants to
We
go
all
crazy
call it
with
a business lunch. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that the most abused tax categories are food, travel, and home office.
Oh, well, yeah, definitely home office.
Yeah.
And so that's why, and generally when people are trying to inflate their expenses, they go, we're like, everybody's like a first-time criminal. Nobody's thinking deeply about how they're bullshitting their taxes. They're just like, that's kind of a business meal. Or I went to a meeting on that trip to Ireland. So business trip. And it's like, if somebody told me to go, do like some crime I've never done, it's going to be sloppy. Like, it's not going to be well thought out.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to break into a car. I'll smash a window and I don't know, I'll YouTube how to hotwire a car, like, or something. But I'm probably going to get caught in the meantime because I don't know, I might ask for help or something.
Or they'll just check your internet record.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so business meals are an area where there should be a profit motive to it. Like
Profit motive.
and
Profit
I'm
motive, that's the word.
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
looking-
good vocab word.
I'm looking at
Words.
your tax return creates a narrative of like, wait, so, on your untaxed money, your freelance money, you might, it shows on top that you made $1,500, making music this year.
Mm-hmm.
So make it make sense to me of why you have almost $5,000 in meals. It could be reasonable,
Yeah.
but just help me understand as your tax preparer, and I'll tell you, is it legit? Like, you don't want to sit across from somebody from the IRS and seem disrespectful in your estimation of their stupidity. Like,
Wow.
Whoa.
You've been dropping some hard bars in this past. Come on now.
you want to treat them like they have a brain. A lot of people respond
Gotcha.
when I ask them about, I'm like, what's up with the $4,500 in meals? They give me a response, which is theoretically to the IRS, that sounds like they're talking to an assistant principal or something. They're just like, oh, I had to tour a
Yeah.
lot.
Like,
And it's like,
I
as
don't
though
wanna
the
get caught.
conversation's going to stop right there.
Right.
And it's like, you're not talking to an assistant principal who's just has to see you for some reason because the teacher sent you down here. You're talking to a detective who's been lied to 1,000,000 times, and their job is to
Whoa.
get more
Yep.
money from you than they're getting paid.
Right.
Wow. Well, when you think of it that way, yeah.
Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
a detective. So
Huh.
the issue,
IRS auditors are detectives. I wonder if they've ever been called that before.
I've never gotten into it, but it's kind of like, I don't know, maybe this is the good
the
show.
audit.
Forensic accounting of like, how do you go into an Enron
Yeah.
and trace it? Mm-hmm. And you're just
No,
looking
totally.
for forensic evidence of accounting.
Yeah.
I'm
Bullshit.
surprised that's not a Law and Order spinoff at this point. Forensic accounting. No, but so to clarify for heads, I can have $1,500 made, $5,000 spent if every night I'm taking out a different label head and begging them.
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Put out
Yeah.
There are reasons. A lot of people, make a film, spend a ton of money making that film, and then are taking it to festivals all over the country, shopping it around. Like, that's the business,
Yeah.
and you have to do it. But that number is going to stick out to me, and if a human looks at it, it's going to stick out to them. And don't not put it if it's real. Don't be so afraid that you're curtailing your own reality of what you actually spent. But that's the kind of stuff I want to discuss with you to make sure we're on the same page, and that if we have to defend it, we're good.
Okay, gotcha.
So there can be business meals, but there has to be a profit motive. If you're having lunch every day, you knew you were going to have lunch. You could have brought it with you. You're not buying anything with that meal. If you work late to hit it, all of a sudden if a deadline gets moved from Friday to tomorrow, and so you order in because you're working an all-nighter, that's a business meal. Because it makes you hit that deadline.
Yeah.
But you need to have that type of record keeping on meals because you're also eating because you're a human.
Right.
Yeah, that's the part that always confused me is the things where I'm like, well, I kind of have to do that anyhow. So.
Yeah, so does that count? No, that makes sense. And yeah, I think the next question is sort of a really similar answer. Can I claim art classes on my taxes if I feel it's work-related and can prove that it some way helped me in sales or is related to my sales process? It sounds like it's just a matter of, can you justify that this is actually a business expense?
Yeah, the tax code is pretty vague. It says necessary and reasonable business expenses.
Right.
Word.
Okay.
And if you can make a case for it, and they can disagree with you. When you talk to that first person at the IRS, that's just a lawyer for the IRS, basically. That auditor's arguing for their side, and you're arguing for your side.
All right.
The burden of proof is on the taxpayer to legitimize that and say this is a reasonable business expense.
Oh, okay. So the burden of proof is on the taxpayer.
Right.
Gotcha.
It's not innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
Not quite like court.
Yeah.
So another one that I hear a lot too, and this listener asked, can you use bank statements to claim instead of receipts?
Yeah, there's two different kinds of evidence. You need to be able to show that an expense happened, so that can be a bank statement. But then you need to, if it's over $75 or lodging during travel, you need to be able to show actual evidence of the receipt. So if I buy something at B&H, it's going to say B&H on the bank statement, but that doesn't indicate, whether I'm buying $400 headphones because I just, you
like headphones.
I like bass, or am I buying headphones for a podcast that I'm going to be doing? Like I have to indicate the business need and also the specifics. The receipt tends to have more of the specifics of what's indicating what I'm buying as opposed to just who I paid.
Gotcha.
But yeah, if it's under $75, you don't technically need the evidence part, the receipt. But in general, I would just say if you think it's business related, stick it in your wallet.
Okay.
When you get home, stick it in an envelope that's labeled with the tax category.
Gotcha.
And
even on the e-purchasing, needing to make sure that you screenshot those receipts. And
yeah, I tried doing Gmail folders for expenses, and in the end, I found it was easiest to grab tear off a piece of envelope, write what I just bought online, write how I paid, what I bought, the date, how much it was, and throw it in that envelope. So I just have scraps of paper, and it's just the odds that you're going to get audited are low enough that I don't want people spending a ton of time organizing this stuff.
Right.
A lot of us get very visionary with how organized our life will be and how we're going to pull it all together with this Excel doc, and all of a sudden, the world will make sense for the first time. And maybe it does for a couple weeks, maybe you make it a couple months, but then it devolves to it's too much work. I found for all the apps and products and programs, I won't actually go on my computer to enter receipts. I just won't physically take that 2 minutes. So stuff piles up, and then it's a pain in the ass. And it's only like a $3 receipt anyway, so who cares?
Exactly.
But you spend that $3 hundreds of times during the year.
Right.
So you need to have a system that's simple enough to use that you'll save a $3 receipt. I think that's a test of a good system.
No, that makes sense.
Okay.
So remember these things. Under $75 is not as big of a thing. If it's over $75, you better have your thing together. And keeping spreadsheets is not a sustainable high. So
for some people it is. Some people love it.
Yeah.
well, yeah,
But
for those
most people won't.
addicted. But
But don't feel like you have to because you think you should.
and you can still write on paper. People forget that this is the thing you can do. Is that there is it's a real receipt.
It's a
receipt
for you to write something on paper that you purchased. And the big important deal is the specificity.
Yes.
Is the showing the profit motive. You're trying to throw all the words that you've been giving us
Profit
out
motive. Yes.
Yeah, keeping a consistent whatever system you'll stick with. Like the under 75, you don't need a receipt, but very often you're just going to forget that expense is what ends up happening. Like we'll remember if you bought a computer during the year, but you're not going to remember like buying batteries or buying a cloth to wipe the screen off.
Right. Exactly.
And those are the ones you need to catch because over the course of a year, you spend more on those little purchases than you do on a computer.
Yeah,
we want all that.
True. If it's cool with you, I kind of want to skip the song and keep rolling.
Oh, let's keep going. Let's keep
All
talking.
right.
Let's keep talking.
Yeah, this is good. Okay, so I got a question about Obamacare. I hear that you'll be fined for not having tax care. How do I avoid or delay it? How much money can they take out? Have they figured out how to collect on that, by the way?
I actually just read this thing that there's no system of collection in place yet. Like they can't go after you for the Obamacare fines, but they can take it if you're owed any refund.
Oh, okay. So, because the fine was $95 for 2014 if you didn't get health care. So
right, but there's
or
2% or right now it's 1%.
Oh, it's 1%. Okay.
And so right now the fine as they introduce the law, I think this stuff's going to take 4 or 5 years to become part of culture, become normal. We understand how it works, etc.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, this year it's 1% of your income over the filing requirement. So say over 10 grand.
Okay.
We're going to start counting 1% or $95, whichever is greater. And I think the max fine for this year is $285 for a whole family.
Okay.
And there are some exemptions.
Okay.
But it's complicated. Like basically, I'm like everybody, tax preparers included, is bumping into this for the first time, and I'm figuring out what to add to the website to make it more comprehensible, to make it, there's a lot of paperwork now for your taxes if you haven't had health insurance all year.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it sounds like it's not even sorted out by the IRS themselves. Like they haven't even quite figured it out.
I mean, like there's no we know what the fines are, but there's not a way to, they haven't established how to collect the fines. Like the fines are going to ramp up as like next year it goes to 2% with a higher maximum fine. The next year it goes a little higher to like 2.5%. But all these things, if it's a terrible experience for you, tell your elected representative, because this stuff's going to get worked out, and it's going to get worked out because people are like complaining. Like, I think Obamacare is great. I think we should all have health insurance. It's stressful not to have it, but all this stuff is all details to it that that we all just need to speak up about because it's going to get worked out over the next couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. So just like kind of wait and see then, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, the fines are not very significant for this year. It's not going to be a huge issue for anybody, but it is something we're going to continue to deal with, so we should actively engage it.
Okay. Right. Gotcha. That makes sense. All right. A friend of mine separated from his wife. Can he claim independent despite last year claiming married?
It depends what you are on December 31st.
Ah, okay. Married or divorced?
Yeah. You're either, you can be legally separated, which has some specific definitions, divorced, or if you're married still on December 31st, your options are married filing separately or married filing jointly. In general, financially, it's better to file jointly, but relationship and sanity are also have their own value. And so if interacting is difficult, married filing separately might be the way to go. If one of you files married filing separately, you both do.
Okay. Gotcha. So you got to at least agree on that side of it.
It'll be a forced agreement.
Okay.
If one of you files separately, the other one will get a letter saying...
You have to file separately.
Yeah.
All right.
Yay.
Cool. All right. Good times. And the last question is, let's see, do you have any tips on filing your own taxes?
Yeah. In general, I think if you really like it, go for it. But my general rule is if you're making untaxed money or making projects that you hope will make money that you're doing on spec, then a tax preparer who understands your industry, who knows what you do and will give you time is worth their cost. I think if you just have a simple W-2 and student loan interest, like, yeah, I can do it faster than you. My prices are lower for stuff like that, but that's basically all I can offer you. If we're not getting into any gray area, then I don't really have, I don't have more information to help you get a better result or to help you avoid making mistakes. But once we get into untaxed money, we're going through specific expenses related to your industry. It gets to a level of complication where unless you're really into diving into this stuff and, Googling your fingers off and finding good information as opposed to just finding information, people generally will stop because you don't know if it's worth your time to go deeper. And you could be losing a good amount of money. I think when we evaluate paying a tax preparer, we think of it like a dinner.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, TurboTax is like a $50 dinner and your dinner is $200. Is it really that much better food?
Huh.
And I think that's just the part of our brain purchases exist in.
Right.
And it's hard to remember that only in this circumstance, on a lower end of things, we're talking about $30,000. Those are the types of numbers we're playing with.
Right.
So if a tax preparer makes things 2% better, they more than covered their cost.
Yeah.
We don't think in large numbers like that. We think in like, how much is dinner? How much is a subway ride? Do I want this beer?
Right.
And like the idea of dealing with a year's worth of finance is you're manipulating very large amounts of money, and the repercussions therefore are equally large. So I think if you're into any of those gray areas of, never mind the annoyance level of doing it yourself can take, I think if you're a freelancer, it's going to take like 4 to 12 hours.
Whoa! Wait, 4 to 12 hours
to
to
do your
4
taxes.
to 12
What?
hours.
That's like...
Remember that.
Because they're
Oh my
walking,
God.
like TurboTax is walking you through it,
Right.
trying to avoid you making a huge mistake and going the wrong place. So they have to ask you very incremental questions to be like, do you want to go over here? Are you sure you want to go over here? This is what's over here. Is this definitely apply to you? Is this really your thing? And so they're they really, you have a machine trying to direct you, whereas like I can just go to that page.
Right,
because we had to talk.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Because you told me what you did.
Right. Well, that's the other thing too. Is it's like, back to your dinner analogy. It's not like you're paying to like have a meal with one person or have a meal with another. Go to this restaurant or that restaurant. You're paying. It's just like you're paying your doctor. You're paying for your expertise and your years of knowledge. That's also part of it too.
Yeah, like I've done thousands of these.
Yeah.
So everything will just have like I know where to go faster.
Yeah.
Like it's not that it's super complicated and that you can't understand. It's just that I can just do it faster because I've done it a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Word. So I think you were mentioning during one of the songs or the song that you are raising your fees this year.
Yes, I have never another tax preparer I was sitting with. He was like, you got to raise your fees each year. You got to train your client to expect price increases. You want to get all your return. You want to get every tax return to be in the like $400 to $600 range. You raise your prices by 25%. 25% of your clients leave. You end up with the same amount of money and free time. And I was like, but
wow.
those 25% of people are people.
Yeah.
Like those are still people that
Still need your help.
they still need stuff.
Yeah.
And like I think my level of empathy comes from the client side because I was the freelancer.
Right.
And
That's the other cool thing about this guy. He knows what a freelancer
I
life
know
is like.
I've done the job of most of the people who come to me.
Yeah.
Like the people who work for me are writers, musicians. Lori's a certified financial planner and acrobat.
Oh, cool.
And but yeah, so this year, anyway, I decided to raise my prices by $25 across the board, and then I'm giving a discount of $25 if you call your elected representative in the government about any topic you want from my office. And
so legit, right, you guys?
You can call them about anything you want. I don't care what you call about. I just want somehow we all, myself included, like we became disengaged. Mm-hmm. We've decided it wasn't worth the annoyance. We couldn't affect anything anyway because I don't have $2 million for a lobbyist.
Right.
So I'm not going to bother wasting my time, spitting in the wind.
It's also pretty hard. I mean, if to look up your local officials these days in New York, it's not a convenient thing.
Yeah. So the prices basically ended up staying the same, but I consider that added value. I think if our demographic, if the people who work with me feel engaged and like, part of the government, paying your taxes is a political event. You just paid money towards bombs and fire departments and roads and
birth control pills, all kind of
Word.
stuff.
Yeah.
There's going to be something in there you
one
agree
way or
with,
the
something
other.
you don't agree with.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have these intense political conversations, and now at the end of the appointment, I could be like, yeah, why don't you call them about that? Like, it is fucked up that your donations don't matter because you don't make enough money. So somebody called about that. One person, this woman was a dominatrix. She said she called up to say sex work should be legal, so it's safer.
Word.
One guy wants Verizon off his street. They've been jackhammering every night.
Same
Like,
difference, right?
Just if something annoys you, like you're paying for representatives. They should represent you, but you got to tell them what you care about. So yeah, that's the most fun thing. It's awesome. It's happening right now.
That is so cool. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. This guy's not just an accountant. Rus Garofalo, brass taxes. So
Or this guy is an example of what an accountant
Yeah.
should be expected to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm like. We only seem great because everyone else is doing so crappy. The bar is
Oh my
way too
God.
low.
It's,
Bar
dude,
is
it's just
too
like
low.
contractors.
Like
Yeah.
it's like we're to
Yeah.
get treated like a person should not be an amazing event.
Right.
Like you're paying people money. Like
Yeah.
they should look you in the eye and acknowledge that you're more than just money going from one side of the counter to the other.
Damn.
You've been saying a lot of
Damn.
really good and helpful and very
You really
quotable
have.
stuff, but really the one thing, and you've been saying it in different ways all this entire time, is that treat your customers, your clients, whatever you call the people that you take money from, like people. You don't even have to treat them like family or like good people, just like people that have
Yeah.
opposable thumbs.
Yeah, like everybody's, and that's one thing you see it across the board. Like everyone is highly emotional about their money. Everybody's like, you go with Pamela. You deal with this stuff all the time. With like, there's different types of personalities, but like it's an intense experience for everybody. We're all going
Always.
through like struggling. When you spend money, you're choosing your values, and you're paying for stuff based on
Word.
what you say is important to you. Maybe not what you say, but it says what's important to you.
Yeah.
And you should get a good value for that. And it's an intimate experience. People are sharing stuff with me and opening up to me, and I feel like you owe you have to respond to them in a way that like is equally opening to them and treating them kindly. You're sharing in a cool experience, and there's no reason it has to be miserable just because it's taxes.
Yeah. Totally.
For
I
real.
love it. Oh, we are sadly out of time. Dr. Postalot says, holla.
Dr.
Follow
Postalot
you
is
on Twitter now.
already following Brass Taxes on Twitter. Everybody
Thank
else should
you.
be doing so, and not just for the months when tax season is around. I'm sure you learn other good things from you during the rest of the year.
Yeah, I try and put out most of my stuff is around social justice and the inequity of the tax code.
Sweet.
Us on this end are generally dealing with the shrapnel of rich people's decisions, so we got to speak up.
Yeah. So,
love
social justice 3/4 of the year, taxes the other quarter.
That's a good ratio.
It's a good ratio. It's a good
That works for
ratio.
me.
Agreed. Thank you so much for joining
Thanks for
us
having
today,
me.
Russ.
Yes, and once again, that's Rus Garofalo of Brass Taxes. Check him out. It's brasstaxes.com, right? Yeah, check him out on brasstaxes.com. Get him at Brass Taxes on Twitter, and I'm sure you can find him in all the other requisite and upcoming socially networking things. We're going to send you out with some Bonfire Family. This is The Grands by an LAMC named Gaja, featuring Uncommon Nassau. Shout out to the Uncommon folks. And we're going to check y'all next week. Thanks for listening to Brunch and Budget on Bonfire Radio. Peace.
Good morning. Mostly this is a story of evil, where individual human nature reveals. The simplest of men can get you with one shot. Years of work gone when you get got. Statistics break down into tier fragments. Realistic weld sounds building near tangents. Hearse bringing in your hands in. Letting off slow, but they land quick. No redos or punches. One take, Jake. Now they removing something, cover they mistake. But you shouldn't get a contract to build a story. Keep those outtakes in all their glory. Which is wasn't true, it's not just authority. Hand to hand passes strands and there's more to see. Whether it's street thugs or blind fuzz, the money they seek tons. For now what? Why is it always at the barrel of a pistol that a mostly story of evil becomes crystal? You can see it in their eyes before they fold. The incorrect disrespect of individuals.
It's the grands, it's being called the band. Whether your boys are blue or scattered through the land, America's got a gun for you, now put it in your hand. It's the grands, it's being called the band. Whether your boys are blue or scattered through the land, America's got a gun for you, now put it in your hand.
That Uncle Sammy wants you armed and dangerous, only the most sadistic at heart remain at his favorites list. The insanest and bravest of gunslingers with itchy fingers, willing to spray for kicks and pray it hits. Always up to some heinous shit, and the confidence grows stronger the more that they murder and get away with it. As long as they're breathing or free, there's no justice for those guilty and not who fell victim and made the list. Cause even the sharpest of shooters can aim and miss, but they fool, they claim an innocent life due to the namelessness of the raging bullet. Better hope you're clear, but it's online.
But you might get caught at the wrong place at the wrong time.
That's when the communities and families speak out and seek out a killer who probably won't be found. If there was a witness who saw something, they never said it. Cause if they did, they would know exactly where they were headed. In a hole of a ditch or a river to sink a snitch, it will later rise to the surface of floater with stinks of fish. Identified as the missing informant they think it is, but the pigs don't do nothing. They're paid off to zip their lips. Wicked is as wicked does, relying on more than liquor or drugs. It's blood that gets them buzzed and pumped up to dump on someone just because they can. Unfuckwittable, feared and respected as the man.
It's the grands, it's being called the band. Whether your boys are blue or scattered through the land, America's got a gun for you, now put it in your hand. It's the grands, it's being called the band. Whether your boys are blue or scattered through the land, America's got a gun for you, now put it in your hand.